My name is Siste Lucia del Rosario. I never imagined that the vast desert sands would become the silent witness to the most profound mystery my eyes have ever beheld. For over 4 decades, I have served as a missionary in the forgotten corner of Africa, carrying medicine, offering sustenance, and bringing comfort to places untouched by maps and the voice of hope. But what I am about to share with you is not merely another tale of hardship and unwavering faith. This is a living testament to a celestial intervention, a divine promise fulfilled precisely when life itself seemed to flicker and fade. Our story began in a tiny village in northern Sudan, nestled on the banks of the White Nile. There, beneath a sun so fierce it felt capable of piercing the very earth, lived an old woman named Amira. Everyone knew her as the Grand Motte of the Palm, for she spent her days meticulously weaving rosary from seed and chanting ancient prayers that echoed through the sparse landscape. No one knew her exact age, some whispered 80, others claimed she was over 100. Yet, what truly defined her was a face that mirrored a unique blend of suffering and serene resignation, a rare tranquility found only in souls who have learned to expect everything from God and nothing from the world. He had arrived at this mission only 2 weeks prior, dispatched by the Sisters of Charity. Her humble adobe chapel stood amid near-laid palm trees and simple mud hut. Yes, the village was impoverished, but it vibrated with a faith so pure, so profound, that a single morning chant was enough to stir the deepest corner of one's heart. From the moment he arrived, Amira became my constant companion. She walked with me to the wells, helped me care for the children, and ceaselessly spoke of the Lady of Heaven, her tender name for the Virgin Mary. Siste, she would tell me, her voice a raspy, sweet murmur, one day, the lady will visit us. Not as she appear in books or painting, but right here, beneath this scorching sun. She will come when the darkness grow deepest. He would simply smile, believing these were merely the poetic musing of a simple, devout woman. But her eyes, ancient and deep as desert wells, seemed to gaze far beyond the confine of time itself. One afternoon, as we prepared remedy in the mission's small clinic, a man covered in dust staggered in. As his clothes were torn, he trembled. He introduced himself as Yaze, a lost traveler seeking water and refuge. We welcomed him with the hospitality the gospel demand, offering food and a corner to rest. Yet, from the very first moment, something in his gaze unsettled me. There was a shadow there, a disturbing blend of fear and desperation. That night, the desert wind howled relentlessly. The chapel groaned, and the oil lamp flickered erratically. Amira prayed softly while he secured the medicine. Then, we heard a DRY, sharp sound, like a sudden blow, followed by a muffled cry. He rushed to the courtyard, and what he saw froze my very soul. Yaze was grappling with Father Joseph, the mission's priest. A knife glinted menacingly in his hand. He didn't hesitate, he screamed his name, but it was too late. The father collapsed to the ground, his white cassock stained crimson. Yaze fled into the impenetrable darkness. Chaos erupted confusion, well, desperate shoots but the worst, he said, was yet to come. The next morning, as the sun climbed above the dune, Father Joseph's body had vanished. No one knew where it had been taken. The villagers whispered that Yaze had escaped north, but Amira gripped my hand, her whisper chillingly certain, et hasn't gone. Et still here. The earth Asha is synonym. He didn't comprehend her word, but her face had turned ashen white. That same afternoon, I set out to seek help. Amira insisted on remaining in the chapel, praying. She asked me not to close the door, to leave her alone with the lady. I will ask her to show us the truth, she declared, even if it cost me my life. That was the last time he saw her alive. When he returned at dusk, the chapel was empty. The lamp still burned, the rosary hung above the altar, but Amira had disappeared. He thought perhaps she had gone to a neighbor's home, but no one had seen her. We searched all night with torches, calling her name among the dunes. Only the echo answered us. 2 days later, a shepherd passing near the DRY riverbed cried out. He had found a spot where the sand appeared freshly disturbed, with confused footprints circling it. We dug frantically with our barrean, and there, less than a meter beneath the earth, we found her body. She was intact, her hand clasped over her chest, her face serene. Most strangely, there were no sign of violence or struggle. Only a faint perfume of rose permeated the sand. At first, we believed she had died from it or exhaustion, but one detail profoundly disconcerted us. At the edge of the grave, half buried, we found the rosary himself had seen her that very morning. And beside it, a small wooden cross, broken in half, with something engraved in Arabic, the light will be reborn. The villager began to murmur that Yazé, the fugitive, had returned in the night and buried her alive to conceal his crime. Other whispered of a demon who could not bear her face. But in my heart, a voice told me that something far greater was unfolding. That night, we held vigil over her body in the chapel, the air filled with an unmistakable aromat very Sammy had perceived in the sand, fresh, sweet rose, utterly impossible in that arid place. The candle flame flickered, and he swore that for an instant, he saw a luminous shadow pass over the altar, if a sky blue mantle gently unfolded over the old woman's body. He said nothing, only knelt, trembling. He sensed that this was merely the beginning, for deep within my soul, I knew Amira was not truly dead. Something sacred was about to be revealed. In the following night, the desert's silence grew heavier than ever. The villager avoided passing near the chapel. Some claimed to hear prayer in the darkness. Others insisted they saw a light emanating from the ground where we had found Amira's body. He couldn't sleep. Every time he closed my eyes, he saw her tranquil face beneath the sand, as if she hadn't died but merely rested, awaiting something. Father Thomas, who arrived from a neighboring mission to assist us, ordered a formal Christian burial. We performed it at dawn, before the entire community, reciting the rosary under the scorching sun. As the earth fell upon the coffin, a warm breeze swept through the cemetery. It was strange, not the DRY desert wind, but soft, like a breath of life. Many noticed it. The women exchanged glances, murmuring prayer under their breath. That afternoon, while Father Thomas reviewed the mission's record, he went to the chapel to clean the altar. In the absolute silence, he heard something, a whisper, barely a thread of a voice, as if someone were praying from a distance. Holy Mary, Mother of God. He froze. The sound emanated from the floor, precisely from the spot where Amira's body had rested. The first night, he knelt and pressed my ear against the adobe floor. The prayer continued, fin but undeniably clear. My hand trembled. He ran to Father Thomas, stammering word. He looked at me with skepticism, but seeing my pale face, he decided to accompany me. We entered the chapel together. The air smelled of incense and rose. As we approached the altar, the father heard it too. It was not my imagination. En ancien, Measure's voice was reciting the Hail Mary from beneath the earth. We exchanged glances, speechless. That night, we resolved not to speak of it to anyone. Father Thomas urgait caution, but the secret would not last. At dawn, several villagers arrived, agitated. They had seen something in the cemetery, a bluish light emerging from Amira's grave, and heard singing, as if many voices repeated a single prayer. We all went together with lantern, crossing the golden dust raised by the wind. What we witnessed there, my friends, I will never forget along I live. From the ground, a soft light emanated, not bright like fire, but alive, breathing. The air vibrated with an invisible presence. A Father Thomas began to pray, a gust of wind swept through the area, and the perfume of rose became so intense that some fell to their knees, weeping. No one could deny what was happening. Something holy, something impossible, was unfolding before our very eyes. Father Thomas wanted to seal the tomb with stones, fearing profanation. But that very night, while the villagers slept, something even more mysterious occurred. A group of children who had gone to fetch water returned running, shouting. They had seen a woman in a blue tunic walking barefoot among the dunes, illuminated by the moon. Her face was indistinct, yet her presence exuded an indescribable peace. As she passed the children, she smiled and said softly in Arabic, "Do not fear. The mother watch over you." The children rushed to recount what had happened, and the next day, the entire village spoke of the apparition. Some didn't believe it. Others, with tears in their eyes, claimed to have felt that some night a voice in their dream repeating, when forgiveness blossom, the earth will return what darkness stole. He himself began to have strange dream. He saw Amira standing, enveloped in white light, her rosary intact. She would tell me, Sister Lucia, the thief did not escape. Forgiveness is searching for him. He did not understand those words until the third day. It was then, at dawn, that we heard knock at the mission door. He rushed to open it, and there stood Yaze. His appearance was deplorable. His beard overgrown, his eyes sunken, his cloth covered in dust. He fell to his knees, weeping, begging to enter. He couldn't flee and sobbed. Since that night, every time he tried to sleep, he heard her voice, Amira's voice. She tell me to return, to beg forgiveness, that the earth cannot rest until he tells the truth. Father Thomas looked at him with a mixture of compassion and dread. He invited him inside. Yaze confessed in a trembling voice, recounting everything he had done. That night, after killing Father Joseph, he had intended to escape, but Amira had seen him emerge from the chapel with the blood-stained cassock. She confronted him fearlessly, calling him a lost son. In his desperation, he had pushed her, and she fell to the ground unconscious. Panicked, he believed her dead. He buried her in the sand near the river, swearing never to return. But she was not dead. He knew and sobbed. I covered her with sand, he felt her hand move, and then he heard a woman's voice that was not her. It told me, do not fear. What you saw today with guilt, God will make blossom with grace. Father Thomas was speechless. Everyone in the room trembled. The killer wept like a child, and just then, the wind blew strongly, extinguishing the oil lamp. The sun rose again filled the air. In that instant, he understood that heaven had begun its work. Amira's story was not yet finished. God was about to display his power, and the Virgin Mary, the Lady of Heaven of whom Amira spoke so often, was preparing to appear. That very night, after Yaze's confession, Father Thomas and he decided to remain in the chapel. No one could sleep. The man's story had spread through the village, and many came to pray in silence, kneeling before the altar where Amira's body had been laid just days before. Outside, the desert wind wailed like a lamb. The air was dense, electric, as if something invisible breathed with us. Close to midnight, as we recited the rosary, Yaze, who remained at the back of the chapel, began to weep again. His cries were deep, almost primal, filled with anguish and repentance. He struck the ground with his hand and cried out, Forgive me, my God, forgive me. If he could restore his life, he would do so with my own blood. Father Thomas approached him, calmly lifted him, and said, Goddess mercy knows no bound, my son. But sometime, before forgiving, heaven asks for a sign. No sooner had he finished speaking than a faint sound resonated in the chapel. It wasn't the wind, nor an echo, it was something distinct, a murmur like thousands of voices, whispering the same prayer. The candle began to flicker, but there was no draught. Then the sun of rose returned, more intense than ever, and an impossible light began to descend from above, filtering through the crack in the adobe roof. We all stood motionless. The light converged over the altar, forming a figure. At first, it was merely a glow, but slowly, the contour sharpened. A woman dressed in a sky blue mantle, arms extended, bare feet resting on a circle of soft fire. Her face radiated a peace no human being could imitate. It was Shet Mother, the Lady of Heaven, of whom Amira spoke so often. The silence became absolute. No one dared to move. Yaze fell to his knees, trembling. Father Thomas covered his face with his hand, murmuring in Latin, Ave Maria, gratia plena. The Virgin looked at all of us, and though her lips did not move, her voice resonated directly in her heart, life does not end where face began. The earth does not return one who has been chosen to show the glory of my son. As she spoke, the light expanded, filling the chapel. I felt my body become light, I floating. Some villagers began to weep uncontrollably, other fell prostrate, and amid that divine clarity, he witnessed something impossible. Amira S. Grave, located outside the chapel, began to tremble. A DRY sound showed, if the earth itself were parting. A blue radiance emerged from the ground, spiraling upward until it merged with the light emanating from the Virgin. Father Thomas cried out, "My God, she is resurrecting." We rushed towards the cemetery, guided by the light. The sky was blanketed with stars, but none shone brightly at that luminous column rising from Amira's grave. The villagers gathered around, some praying, others simply contemplating in awe. And then, the miracle happened. The sand began to shift slowly, half breathing. Then a slant hand emerged from the ground, followed by another, and finally, the entire body of the elderly Amira rose from the earth, enveloped in a golden glow. Her eyes were closed, her face, serene. The people cried out, wept, knelt, but when she opened her eyes, everything stopped. Her gaze was not of this world. She did not appear a woman recently rescued from death, but a transfigured soul. She walked slowly among us, with a supernatural calm. In her hand, she held her intact rosary, and each bead glowed like a tiny star. She approached Yazé, who remained prostrate on the ground, trembling like a leaf. She extended her hand and touched his head. "Son," she said with a voice that was not merely human, "the death you gave me was the path through which God chose to show his mercy. Do not condemn yourself, rise, and let the light transform you." The man began to weep even harder, but this time not from guilt, but from profound relief. He embraced the old woman's feet and kissed her rosary. The light that surrounded her extended toward him, enveloping him in a clarity that felt like fire but did not burn. We all felt the warmth of that grace permeate the air, filling our hearts with an indescribable peace. The Virgin, still visible above the cemetery, raised down towards the sky and declared, "Where a thread sowed death, my son saw life, where guilt closed a tomb, forgiveness open heaven." Then her figure began to slowly vanish, like the dawn dispelling the night. But the perfume of rose linger, and with it, the echo of a promise, "This place shall be a sign for generation to come." Amira walked back to the mission, slowly, supported by some of the villagers. She did not seem weak, on the contrary, she radiated strength. Her skin, once withered, now possessed a healthy glow. No one could fully comprehend it, but we all knew that something sacred had transpired. That night, no one doubted. No one spoke of coincidence or magic. We all knew that heaven had touched the earth, and that the Virgin Mary had been there, among us. But the most astonishing revelation was yet to come. The very next morning, as we went to pray by the riverbed, we discovered that in the exact spot where Amira had been buried, an unknown plant had sprouted, a perfect white flower, with the scent of fresh rose. No one had ever seen it in the desert before. The elder called it a flower from heaven, a sign of new life. He knew then that the story would not end there. The miracle was just beginning. The following morning, the desert awoke transformed. It was no longer the same arid, silent landscape. The air held a strange freshness, as if the earth itself had breathed for the first time in centuries. Children ran barefoot around the small white flower that had bloomed over Amira's grave. No one dared to touch it, but all drew near to inhale its perfume. It was identical to the aroma that had filled the chapel the night of the miracle, a scent of pure, sweet rose, impossible to find in that DRY land. Father Thomas celebrated Mass at dawn. The chapel could not contain the surging crowd. Family arrived from neighboring village, walking for hours, some carrying the sick on makeshift stretcher. They adored the whisper, and all women resurrected. The Virgin appeared in the desert. Fear mingled with hope. Some came seeking proof, others, salvation. Amira, seated beside the altar, prayed in silence. Her countenance was that of a transformed woman. She didn't speak much, but when she did, her word carried the weight of eternity. "Do not look at my face," she would say with humility. Look at the love that returned my life. During communion, another event stirred everyone profoundly. A woman, blind since childhood, approached, guided by her son. Amira rose and embraced her tenderly. She made the sign of the cross over her eyes and whispered, "The Mother of Heaven also wish you to see her light." The woman let out a soft cry, and suddenly, her eyes opened. Her pupil, once clouded, shone like the dawn. She fell to her knees, weeping. Everyone in the chapel began to sing the Ave Maria through their sob. Father Thomas covered his face with his hand, unable to contain his tears. From that day forward, the miracle multiplied. A child with a fever was healed after Amira placed a rosary on his forehead. An old man who could not walk rose to help clean the chapel. Even sick animals seemed to recover after drinking water that Amira had blessed. But always happen when light shone brightly, darkness began to stir away. Local authorities, both military and religious, heard the news and dispatched emissaries. They claimed everything was superstition, that the people were being manipulated. Other, more fearful, denounced it a dangerous heresy, a demonic manifestation disguised a piety. The faith that had ignited up in the poor now began to trouble the powerful. One night, a we près de Vesper, we heard the roar of engines approaching. The dogs began to bark, and on the horizon, we saw the lights of several vehicles advancing through the dust. "They are coming for us," Yaze whispered, his voice trembling. "They told me they would return." Father Thomas rose, serene but resolute. "Let us not fear. If it is God's will, he will defend us." Minute later, a 2 ans soldiers surrounded the mission. They entered without warning, shooting order, pushing people outside. The captain from before was not among them. In his place stood a man with a stern gaze and superior rank insignia. By order of the authority, this place is declared closed and announced. Public prayer and the veneration of alleged apparition are forbidden. Amira remained seated before the altar, in silence. The officer approached her and bellowed, "Are you the woman they say returned from the dead? Speak. Who talked you to save these people? Where do you hide your trick?" The old woman looked at him with tenderness. "There are no tricks, my son. Only truth." Lee and roared, striking the altar table. The crucifix fell to the ground, and instantly, all the candles extinguished. An icy wind swept through the chapel. The soldiers exchanged confused glances. The air shifted. The familiar sound of rose once again filled the place. And in the midst of the darkness, a light began to form, soft at first, then intense, until it turned night into day. She was there, the Virgin, with the same blue mantle, the same luminous face. Her bare feet seemed to touch the ground. The soldiers recoiled. Some fell to their knees, others tried to flee, but the wind held them motionless. The mother spoke, not with her mouth, but to the soul of all present. "Why do you fear the truth? He do not come to divide, but to unite. He bring not politic, but love. He seek no temple of stone, but hearts that believe." The commandé, paralyzed, could barely breathe. "What are you?" he managed to murmur. She looked at him with infinite compassion. "I am the voice your son forgot to hear. I am the mother who weeps for every life destroyed by hatred." The man fell to his knees, breaking into sobs. "I have persecuted your followers. I have spilled innocent blood. Can he still be forgiven?" The Virgin responded, "If you do what the powerful have not done, kneel before the truth." The light surrounding her expanded, covering the entire chapel. He felt the ground tremble beneath my feet, as if the earth itself were alive. Amira, with her eyes closed, began to pray Hail, Mary, full of grace. And everyone, even the soldier, followed her. As the prayer progressed, the light grew, and a warm breeze filled the air. When we uttered the word now and at the hour of our death, we heard a distant thunder, but it did not come from the sky, it came from deep within the earth. Suddenly, a blue radiance burst from the ground, from the very spot where the miraculous flower had appeared. That single flower multiplied before her eyes. From one root sprang dozen, then 100 of white blossom, covering the sand like a mantle. The virgin raised her right hand and said, This desert will bear witness to a promise. Allons à these flowers live, face will not die. But remember, my children, the miracle is not for admiration, but for service. Carry the love you have witnessed here to the darkest corner of the world. Then she turned her gaze toward Amira. You, my daughter, were chosen to be a seed of mercy. Your pain opens the earth, and from it, hope will spring forth. But your mission is not yet complete. You must depart. The old woman is fastly up with tears. Where, mother, she asked with a trembling voice. Where the hearts of men have forgotten to love, there he will be with you. The celestial figure slowly vanished, ascending in a column of light that rose to the heavens until it blended with the star. The silence that followed was so profound that no one dared to speak. The commandé, still on his knees, kissed the ground. I cannot deny what my eyes have seen, he said, his voice broken. Then believe, Amira responded softly. Believe, and all will be new. At dawn, the soldiers departed. They left no destruction, no orders only respect and oliao. Before leaving, the commandé approached Father Thomas and said, He came too close at temple, and he live having opened my soul. From that day, pilgrim began to arrive from all corner. The desert, once mute and barren, transformed into a place of prayer. The sick came to touch the earth where the rose bloomed, and many were healed, not just in body, but in soul. Amira remained for a while longer. Then, one morning, she bid farewell to everyone with an embrace. The mother calls me, she said. Do not weep. Where face blossom, he will be. She walked away into the dune, carrying only a rosary and a small white mantle. No one ever saw her again. But every year, on the exact date of her departure, the air filled with that familiar perfume of rose. And beneath the moon, the flowers bloom anew, if recalling the promise, where a thread sowed death, the virgin sowed life. More than 20 years have passed since that night when heaven descended upon the desert. Sometimes I close my eyes, and I can still smell the perfume of rose floating in the hot air. I can hear the whisper of the wind among the palm trees. I can see Amira's face illuminated by that light which did not come from the sun. Time has passed, yes. But the miracle has not disappeared, it has only changed form, how have changed, without ever ceasing to be the sea. The place where it all happened has become a sanctuary. There are no longer mud utter the old adobe chapel. In ETS place stand a simple church, with white walls and a wooden cross brought from Ethiopia. Pilgrims arrive from all parts of the world, Christian, Muslim, even men and women of no religion. No one feel rejected there, because the Virgin's message was clear, he did not come to divide, but to unite. Every year, on the anniversary of the miracle, the desert burst into life. The white flowers bloom again in the exact spot where the old woman was buried. Scientists who came to study the plant could not identify ETS species. They declared it botanically impossible for it to exist there under those conditions. But those who believe do not need proof. The faithful collect petals, store them in small cloth bags, and use them to pray for the sick. Many have recounted a link that medicine cannot explain. He continued to live in a small house beside the sanctuary. My hair has turned grey. My hand tremble you right, but my hat retains the same flame from that night. Sometimes, when the sun set and the desert is painted gold, I sit before the altar and read my old journal. Everything is there, the tears, the fear, the face, the names of those who bore witness. And every time I read Amira's word, the mother calls me, do not weep, I feel that she is still here, invisible, accompanying her prayer. Father Thomas died 5 years ago. Before he passed, he asked me to promise to write this testimony. Lucia he told me, Amira's story is not just a tale of resurrection, but a prophecy. One day, other will be buried by injustice, by hatred, by indifference, and the same love that raised her will do so again. That night, I will held vigil over his body, the perfume of rose once again fillet the chapel. He knew that she, the mother, had come for him too. And Yazzie, the converted thief, lived the rest of his days serving in the sanctuary. He dedicated himself to caring for pilgrim, guiding young people in prayer. He never fled from anything again. A year before his death, he told me with tears in his eyes, "Sister, sometimes I dream of Amira. She smiles at me and tell me that guilt no longer exists where there is love." He died in peace, with the rosary in his hand. We bury him near the white flower where it all began. Occasionally, travelers arrive who know nothing of this story. They ask with curiosity, "Is it true that a woman was buried alive and resurrected?" He smiled and replied, "No, it was not a woman, it was the love of God that resurrected in her." Then he led them to the place of the miracle. There, beneath the scorching sun, the air is different. He felt dancer, more alive. He asked them to be silent, to listen, and almost always, no matter who they are or where they come from, everyone ends up weeping. Not from sadness, but because something deep within their soul recognizes that they stand on holy ground. He have learned over the years that miracles are not for the saints, but for those who do. The Virgin did not come to crown the face of the perfect, but to ignite the flame in broken hearts. And every time the perfume of rose fills the air, he knows she is reminding us of just that. Sometime at night, he walk alone into the desert, he walk barefoot on the cool sand, following the moon's reflection. The silence there is so pure that you can almost hear the heartbeat of the earth. And always, without fail, the wind brings a soft, maternal voice that says, "My name, Lucia." Then he look to the sky, see the star, and reply, "Yes, mother, we still believe, faith still blossom," and in that instant, the entire desert smell of rose.